This is TLC-To-Go.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. If you're a faculty in the health sciences, well, you know the challenge is probably the biggest one we face. How do we get our students past just, spitting back textbook info? How do they become competent professionals?
Exactly. Because being good in medicine or nursing or pharmacy, it's not about rote memorization. It's really about applying what you know under pressure in those really complex clinical situations.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we're digging into a potential answer, a strategy that comes straight from the UTHSC Teaching and Learning Center, the TLC. Their material focuses on something they call authentic assessment. It's a key pedagogical approach.
Right. And our mission today really is to unpack that. What does it mean? Why should we use it? And how can faculty actually put it into practice? We need to look past those traditional exams and figure out how to make our evaluations truly match the skills, the competencies needed in real healthcare settings.
Okay, let's get right into it then. What does authentic assessment actually look like in health sciences? What are we really measuring here?
Well, it's a pretty fundamental shift, actually. It's all about the application, applying that integrated knowledge, those clinical skills, but in contexts that genuinely mirror real-world practice. We're pulling evaluation out of the theoretical,
And making it practical.
Precisely. The TLC resource gives some great examples. Think about high-fidelity clinical simulations where students have to actively manage a deteriorating patient, or in-depth case analyses that demand not just diagnostic skill, but ethical reasoning too.
Right.
Then there are things like structured portfolios, tracking professional growth, or even project-based work like designing a community health program.
So the assessment itself becomes part of the learning process, a deeper kind of learning.
Exactly. We shift evaluation away from just recall
Right.
towards demonstrating critical thinking, showing they can integrate skills in complex, messy, realistic situations.
And that supports understanding professional standards, values, both in class and, crucially, in the clinic. Okay, so that's the what. But here's the big question for busy faculty. Why? Why put in the effort? Because let's be honest, developing these can be complex. What's the payoff?
Well, the research points to some really significant benefits. The most immediate one is probably improved transferable learning and clinical judgment. When students face assessments that make them think like a practitioner, they start building that bridge. They connect the theory we teach to the often messy reality of practice.
So the learning isn't just stuck in the classroom.
No, it becomes active, usable. And there's this interesting concept, emerging learner-educator co-creation.
Co-creation. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, recent work, like Killam and colleagues just this year, suggests that when students actually have some agency in the assessment, maybe helping define criteria or even designing parts of the task, the learning seems to stick even better. They're not just being assessed, they're involved in defining what mastery looks like.
That's fascinating. It changes their relationship with assessment. And I bet it boosts motivation, too.
Oh, absolutely. That's another huge benefit. Learners consistently report feeling more engaged, having a stronger sense of purpose when the assessments feel real. When it simulates something they'll actually do or addresses a real social issue, they lean in. Jackson and Bridgestock found that link back in 2021. Authentic tasks drive commitment.
Yeah, you can see how that would work. It feels relevant to who they're becoming.
And then there's the institutional side, which, let's face it, is critical for us in health sciences.
Accreditation.
Exactly. Authentic assessment is perfect for competency-based education because it provides concrete evidence of progress. It lines up directly with the big frameworks, ACGME for residents, AC and Essentials for nursing, KP outcomes for pharmacy. It shows they're ready.
That's such a key point. Accreditors want proof of competence, not just test scores. They want to see the skills in action.
Right. And one more thing, thinking long-term. This helps shape professional identity.
How so?
The source material highlights how things like structured reflection, self-assessment, built into the process, actually support lifelong learning habits.
So it trains them to reflect, to keep learning after graduation. We all know clinicians who plateau.
Exactly. This helps prevent that. It makes that continuous improvement cycle, plan, do, study, act, part of their professional DNA, something O'Brien and others noted last year.
Okay, the rationale is strong, very compelling, but now the implementation. Let's get practical. What steps does the TLC suggest for faculty wanting to bring more authenticity into their teaching?
Right, the how-to. The first step, and it's foundational, is the design. You've got to design tasks that are, realistic and relevant. Frame assessments around the kinds of tough problems or critical decisions health pros actually grapple with daily.
Okay, give me an example.
Sure. So instead, list the symptoms of condition X. Maybe you give them a complex case study, lots of diagnostic data, maybe conflicting info,
Uh-huh.
and ask them to work up a differential diagnosis and an initial treatment plan and justify it, like they would in a real team setting.
I see. Much more involved.
Or maybe designing a community health intervention budget, messaging, the whole thing instead of just writing a paper about wellness.
That complexity means the grading has to be really clear, though, right? How do we ensure fairness and transparency when the tasks are so nuanced?
That's crucial. The resource emphasizes starting with your core competencies. What must they demonstrate? Then build tasks that explicitly require demonstrating those things. And this is key use transparent criteria. Detailed rubrics are essential.
And what should those rubrics emphasize?
Reasoning, communication, ethical judgment. It's less about what facts they recall and much more about how they think, how they interact, how they decide.
Okay, and here's something you touched on that feels like a real game changer. Reflection and feedback loops. Formative feedback.
Yes. This is maybe the biggest difference from traditional testing. Building in chances for students to learn and improve before the final grade.
So things like debriefing after a simulation.
Exactly. Focused debriefing right after. Or structured peer reviews on a draft case analysis. Even having them record video reflections on a patient interaction. All formative.
And the goal is to use that feedback before the summative evaluation.
Precisely. It shifts the focus. It's less about just getting the grade.
And more about actually mastering the skill. It changes the culture from grading to growth.
You got it. That's the aim. And we need to actively connect the classroom and the clinic, too. They can't be separate worlds.
How do we do that effectively within assessments?
Well, you could use simulation scenarios, maybe lower stakes ones, specifically to assess diagnostic reasoning, and then explicitly link that back to the pathophysiology you taught.
Yeah.
Or have students directly connect their real clinical encounters to course concepts through, say, structured reflective writing. Or even better, using a digital portfolio.
Ah, portfolios. That brings up a potential hurdle workload. Grading portfolios sound like a lot of work, especially with large classes. Does the TLC suggest ways to manage that?
Yeah, that's a valid concern. But technology is really the key here. It makes authenticity scalable. E-portfolios, for instance, aren't just folders. They're structured tools. Students upload specific evidence notes, videos, reflections, and map it directly to competencies. It makes evaluation targeted.
So the tech helps streamline it.
Definitely. And things like virtual simulations or online case discussion platforms let many students experience realistic scenarios without needing massive physical resources for every single one.
Okay. And one last point on practicality ensuring fairness, reducing subjectivity, especially when we're assessing performance.
Right. The answer is explicitness. Make the criteria crystal clear and share them up front. Use good rubrics, absolutely. But also provide exemplars. Show them what excellent actually looks like for that specific task.
Models of success.
Exactly. That clarity builds confidence and makes the evaluation feel fair, even when you're judging complex skills like communication or judgment.
That's really practical advice. So for faculty listening who want to learn more, the TLC resource itself points towards other helpful materials, right?
It does. Internally, the TLC offers things like their 5-minute university, short, focused resources, and a broader workshop library with more implementation details.
Good for busy schedules. And externally, any pointers for benchmarking or finding examples?
Yeah, the source mentions a few good places to look. The Teaching Gateway at UNSW in Australia, the Center for the Advancement of Teaching Excellence at UIC, University of Illinois, Chicago.
Okay.
And the University of Chester in the UK also has some valuable examples of practice available. Lots of ideas out there.
Great. So pulling it all together then.
Well, I think authentic assessment is really that essential bridge. It connects knowing and doing in health sciences. It's how we ensure our evaluations actually prepare students for the real demands of clinical practice. We move from assessing knowledge recall to assessing competent action.
Couldn't agree more. And maybe a final thought to leave folks with, building on what the TLC resource nudges us toward. We talked about that power of formative feedback. What really strikes you about the cultural shift needed when we put debriefing and peer review before the final grade? It really does change the game, doesn't it? It shifts the whole focus from just chasing grades to genuinely developing professional competence. Something to think about. Well, that's our time for this deep dive into authentic assessment. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you'll join us again for future explorations of critical topics in higher education and professional development.